Hello everyone, my name is Cider, and welcome to the next episode of the Weapon Chat series. Today we are diving deep into the landfill and talking about the massacre that was the Wilds Insect Glaive. Now my time against AT Arkveld using the Insect Glaive is the worst amongst the 14 weapons, at 24 minutes and 55 seconds. Now, is that a skill issue? Absolutely. I've seen speedrunners that do it in under 10 minutes. But in my opinion, I would also say Insect Glaive is probably one of the most inconsistent weapons in the game, and by far one of the hardest weapons to use in the game at a higher level. And that is all because of how bad the Wild Insect Glaive is. Now, with how much I despise this weapon, I was honestly considering not even adding the good things about Wild's Insect Glaive, because most of it's bad, but being completely objective, or trying to be at least, there are some good things in the Wild's Insect Glaive's moveset. The main thing I would say is there are more ways to gather extracts, especially the Charge Harvest Extract, which honestly isn't that bad. The Charge Harvest Extract you can charge fairly easily, even after certain animations. While the animation of the attack is ending, you can already preemptively charge the Harvest Extract, which makes it honestly fairly accessible. It's a little hard to control. I'm not sure how it is for controllers. On mouse and keyboard, it's honestly not that big of an issue. There's also the assist consect effect when you're in focus mode. Now, this isn't all good. There are still bad things about this, but it is another sort of easier way to collect extracts. But in my opinion, I feel like if there is an extract that you can collect using the assist method, you could probably gather it more easily using the old method where you literally send it out normally. And with a fast enough consect, that method's honestly faster than using the assist from focus mode in my opinion. And that's it. That's all the good things I could speak of the Insect Glaive, because there isn't that many good things in my opinion. Now, before I get into the bad, I figured I should explain what Insect Glaive is in my mind. From World, being an Insect Glaive main in World, the Insect Glaive was a fast hit and run weapon, more like similar to being long range dual blades. And I mained that in World because using certain combos I could get high damage out quickly, but as well as having low commitment, and I could get away really quickly using the Ground Glaive combo. One of my main combos I would do would be move while moving. You press triangle, I honestly don't remember the attacks, but immediately press circle after, straight into Tornado Slash. And there are also a lot of combos in Insect Glaive that add a lot of variety depending on how much time you have or how much you want to commit to an attack. For example, you can go triangle, triangle, circle, circle. That is a basically longer version of the combo, which can get you back to Tornado Slash. Or there's also an infinite combo. Basically, there are a lot of combos you can go through depending on your situation. Now, in Wilds, Insect Glaive basically lost all of that. It lost everything that I would say is the Insect Glaive's identity. Instead of being low commitment, it's everything all high commitment, with the charge attack being one long animation and you can't roll out of it or anything. You also have the RSS, which is also a high commitment attack, exposes you a lot because you're flying up and you can not really dodge well mid-air, especially with all the glorious aerial hitboxes that the attacks have in the monsters. On top of that, I do believe the moveset generally, with basically every weapon, was slowed down from World, so it just felt worse to play regular Ground Glaive. And that's basically the general, my general argument against, of at least why I really dislike Wild's Insect Glaive is, in my eyes, it completely goes against what it is. I do also want to preface that the resentment I have against Insect Glaive is honestly sort of unwarranted. Although I say, oh, it's not they completely lost the identity I have, or I thought Insect Glaive was from World. That argument, at least in my head, mainly came from me arguing on Reddit about Insect Glaive. So basically I built up a lot of resentment towards Insect Glaive, Wild's Insect Glaive from World, and that's definitely self-inflicted. But the amount of resentment I have on top of me, basically I've sort of accepted for what it is. I'm not sure if I'll ever really enjoy Insect Glaive on top, and I really doubt that anyone can persuade me otherwise of the state of Insect Glaive in the base game of Wilds. Now on to the more detailed things about why Insect Glaive is bad. Now, like previously mentioned, one of the things that I very dislike is I do believe the whole moveset was slowed down from World, which makes it feel much more clunky, and it is much harder to hit and run effectively. And the other very minor bad thing I would say is that you can't layer your Kinsect. So even though we have the like Omega Kinsect from defeating Savage, I think, we try to avoid using that because the stats on that Kinsect really sucks. And it's also, some of the Kinsects I like to use don't match with the layered armor I have, so... And I really don't like making a set around a Kinsect instead of having having no option for the Kinsect to fit to my fashion sets. Very minor, very honestly, for most people wouldn't care that much, but it is an issue I sort of have. The first big thing I have that also relates to the identity of the Insect Glaive is why in God's name does it have an offset? No, except for it not having a perfect dodge and the offset really seeming like basically a band-aid that the developers slapped on to make it seem like it has some of the new things in Wilds, some of the new game mechanics in Wilds. But generally, I would say, and I feel like a lot of people do also have this opinion, which is offsets is you, the hunter, overpowering the monster using a heavier weapon, which is why the offset's only on heavier type weapons, like greatsword, heavy bowgun, switch axe, and hammer. Now, this also, in a way, shows that the offset is on heavier weapons, and the other game we see a distinction between lighter and heavier weapons is World, where heavy weapons can tenderize a spot in one clutch claw attack, whilst the lighter weapons take two tenderize attacks before a proper tenderize. Insect Glaive was one of the weak weapons, or the light weapons. So it having an offset really conflicted me, and I personally also feel like Insect Glaive definitely should have gotten a perfect dodge instead of getting an offset. The next complaint I have against Wild's Insect Glaive is the Kinsect upgrade tree is absolutely god awful. We have 6 total Kinsects in the entire base game, and that is frankly ridiculous. On top of that, there's not a proper tree like World, so it's really hard to tell. At least one of the things I wanted to do is craft every Kinsect, but I had to basically on paper write down the Kinsect trees that I've already made. So basically that crafting menu is fucking dog shit. I don't understand why they didn't just go with the same way in World, but that is really annoying. And if there are more Kinsects, that would get even more confusing. This is also a complaint towards both World and Rise, technically, but I feel like the best Kinsect nurturing system that I've experienced is from the old gen, from GU, where in GU, if you didn't know, you can collect jellies outside in the world, and those jellies will be used specifically for upgrading your Kinsect. On top of that, you can manually choose what stats your Kinsect has. So instead of having to choose amongst the limited options you have in the Kinsects that you have, you could make a specific Insect that has, high damage, no whatever the second stat was, and high speed. Or you could build into specific extremely high speed, no damage, and basically tailor it to your preference. I feel like one of the reasons they probably didn't implement this is because of the jellies. Having an additional collectible just for the insects seems unnecessary, but my argument against that is you could just use items that we regularly collect for those upgrades. For example, for attack, you could just use a Might Seed or even a Demon Potion. For speed, you could have a Dash Juice, or there's probably something else that works as well. For whatever the third stat was, you could use Adamant Seeds, or basically, there's no reason that the resources that we already now collect do not be used for insects. So the argument that jellies were the reason that system was removed, that doesn't make, there are ways around that. So yeah, I would absolutely love for that detailed system to come back. Another thing that I really don't like about the insects are how vague the insect bonuses are. Some of them are quite self-explanatory, such as the Insect Boost Harvest Extract and Insect Boost Fast Charge. Fast Charge obviously meaning the Harvest Extract attack is charged more quickly, while the Harvest Extract at the very least has a visual component that shows you, well, Harvest Extract allows you to gather 3 extracts instead of the original 2 when you fully charge your insect and send it out. Those are either self-explanatory or you can visually tell what's going on. But there are some, such as Attack Boost Powder. I don't believe there's any more explanation of what that does in the game. Attack Boost Weak Point Focus. What does that do? Let me see. Insect Boost Combo Boost Element. That seems like it might do more element damage, but I can't be sure, because why not just say it doesn't seem to have any more element, as in the actual stat element, than the other insects. Can Extract Boost Recovery. What the hell does that do? Insect Boost Stamina Recovery, sure, that's fairly self-explanatory, but the point is, these insect bonuses are not explained in the game at all, and I feel like there are still some that aren't understood. And I know Monster Hunter has been, infamously bad for not explaining what the hell's going on, but my god, is this a new low. One last thing about the insects is that because of how basically the most efficient way to use a insect right now is just have focus mode on and it will follow your attacks. And especially with a blunt insect, that would allow you to KO the monster if you're going for the head. But what that does, on top of basically the optimal gameplay now, is that the powder of insects is, from my understanding, basically completely ignored. I do believe I saw a post somewhere, or like a video that says one of the insect bonuses makes the insect focus on making powders instead of helping you or being like an assist type. But even if that's true, this does still seem like the more efficient way, the better way to use the insect is just keep it with focus mode and with us just helping your attack, because those attacks are faster, you can aim where they go, as well as the powders. Honestly, they don't do much. Recover can help you heal a little, but the healing is negligible, especially in harder fights where you basically get 1 or 2 shots anyway. On top of all that, even if the powders are very, very powerful, it's extremely hard to trigger them, because I don't believe they stick with the monster. You create a cloud, and if the monster moves away, the cloud stays there, I think? Honestly, I apologize if all this is wrong, because I don't remember. I have no idea how powders work in Wilds, but generally, I believe the effectiveness of the powders suck, and they are also hard to use to begin with. And on top of that, yeah, like previously said, the assist insect using focus mode seems to be a better option overall. All that said, these factors make the powder basically useless in Wilds, despite there are insects with better powder effects, and but still it seems like the entire powder mechanic is kind of ignored, and there's no reason to care about it. Now, my biggest complaint about Wild's Insect Glaive is the optimal way of playing it. The best way of playing it right now is RSS spam, or Rising Spiral / spamming. Similar to Full Release / spam, or Wyvern Full Blast, Wormstick Full Blast spam. It is just spamming one big attack after you collect your resources. But I would argue it's by far the most one of the more annoying spam attacks because RSS also supposedly can collect your extracts, but the chance it gathers all your extracts is very, very low, especially depending on the monster matchup. Probably because of, well, how I kind of resent Insect Glaive. That playstyle is very, very clunky to me, and I just find that especially unfun amongst the spam attacks. Although, to be fair, if there is a monster such as Raidao, where you can quite consistently gather all 3 extracts from your RSS, those are honestly very fun. I won't deny that. You might be saying, oh, if you don't like RSS spamming, you can still play Ground Glaive, or only use RSS when the monster's down. Well, the thing about that is, the Ground Glaive playstyle from World, or those combos, they are outcompeted by the one new charge attack from in Wilds. So the current Blessed Ground combo, I believe, is literally just holding a direction after you gather all your extracts, of course, then press Y plus B, then Y, then Y plus B, and repeat. And this is not just it's the most damaging attack as well as being the most commitment attack. You know how I said I in World Glaive was high damage, mobile, and low commitment? Well, now Wild's Insect Glaive has become, in all optimal playstyles, fairly or high commitment, low mobility, and basically the complete opposite of what World Glaive was in my eyes. And the absolute worst part is from my experience, the regular Insect Glaive combos like World Ground Glaive, is not just a lot slightly worse, because if it was just slightly worse, I would still probably choose to use them. But at least, honestly, it might have been changed a bit, or maybe my build's not the best. But it feels significantly behind. Well, not that significant, but it feels fairly behind to the other ground combo or RSS spamming, which makes me want to avoid playing those playstyles. So in my mind, I'm trying to avoid playing the style that I prefer because it does better damage. Sorry, it does worse damage, but I don't want to play the more optimal playstyles because I don't like them. So at that point, I might as well just throw this weapon into the trash, which I have. I wanted to update this point that I have a little bit after doing just a couple more hunts, again in SOS hunts using the Insect Glaive, even in just multiplayer. I basically took the same build and played 3 different playstyles. One being the World Ground Glaive, where I use like the old combos. One where I do Wild Ground Glaive, where I only spam the strong descending slash, and then one more where I spammed RSS as much as I can. The results were honestly kind of confusing. They basically somehow all ended up doing about the same amount of damage. Although, to be fair, the SOS people were not the best every time, so it was kind of a mixed bag, but seeing how it, honestly, first of all, it might be my build, I might have just a really bad build, but even then, I guess my additional conclusion, or new conclusion would be, it's suffering from the issue that Bo had before Title Update 4, where it feels like you're putting in a lot of effort, but for very little damage return. So the effort to damage ratio is quite poor, which is another reason that I would avoid playing Insect Glaive. I could just output the same amount of damage with half the effort with other weapons. Lastly, this is technically a minor issue, but it does open a can of worms that I do want to get into, is that the aerial combos are beyond dog shit. Despite having the buff from the change in Rise, where after you successfully do a vaulting dance, which is your helicopter attack, or if you don't have all your extras, the regular Y attack, after you land that Y attack, or the last hit on your helicopter, you bounce up, which is called the vaulting dance, and supposedly the vaulting dance increases your aerial damage. And from Rise, the playstyle was you vault dance as much as you can, then you do the wyvern dive attack? I don't actually remember what it's called. But in this game it's called the strong descending something. Basically, it's the Y plus B attack again. But the damage, even after you get all your Volt Dance buffs, is still abysmal. It is so bad. It is so pointless. And I understand it seems like the devs didn't even intend aerial to be a thing anymore because it was completely removed originally in the beta. And they kind of sort of once again slapped a band-aid on and just added it back in. But the kind of words I'm about to open is I don't agree with why people say aerial is bad. The biggest argument I usually hear, or I think I've heard, against aerial Insect Glaive is the fact that aerial Insect Glaive allows you to ignore the monster. But that is such a stupid and bad argument, because perfect dodges and blocking essentially do the same thing. Although Insect Glaive flies over the attacks to the point where the monster can't interact with you if the aerial hitboxes are normal or not as stupid as they are now, what you're essentially doing is avoiding damage. Well, perfect dodges and blocking basically have the same effect. So I don't understand why pole vaulting or aerial dodging gets the same, or is more looked down upon, I guess. The second argument is also here in a similar vein, is that if you can just fly over most monsters, then the game just becomes too easy. And I think this comes from World, where there aren't ridiculous aerial hitboxes, so you could actually be quite safe in the air. But the thing is, why is that a bad thing? Why is there having an easier option for people to go for a bad thing? It's not like aerial does like insane damage. If you clear a quest using aerial, only aerial being extremely safe, then having a low damage could be a fair trade-off, but I guess in Wilds the damage is low, but it's so low that it doesn't even kill the monster, so... And on top of that, similar to my previous argument, if you know how to block, even not perfect blocking, if you just hold down RT, and for example on Sword and Shield, you only use counter slash after you block, or if you're using a lance, you only use guard pokes, that's essentially, once again, essentially the same thing. So it also could make the game very, very easy, because if anything, comparing aerial helicoptering with Insect Glaive, comparing that to like lance guard attack, guard poking, guard thrusting, if anything, aerial Insect Glaive is harder to use. It's both harder to use as well as it's much harder to be efficient with. If it's hard to use and more efficient, then why is, once again, I guess in a way, looked down upon again? The last argument I do hear a lot is that the original Insect Glaive doesn't have that, so people saying that aerial is part of Insect Glaive's identity are wrong. Well, about that, Insect Glaive, although originally being only collecting extracts then slashing, I feel like that, although that isn't an identity, it's a fairly weak identity, and in a way it overlaps with other weapons. You're basically collecting things, then you're fast, and so I guess I said, Insect Glaive is fast and has longer range like a dual blades. So in a way it's sort of like dual blades, and if you just collect extracts and do damage, then you're sort of like longsword. So I guess the base identity, quote-unquote, of Insect Glaive is sort of a mix of dual blades and longsword, you could say. But in my opinion, aerial would allow it to have a much more distinct identity. And I guess in a way why a lot of people say aerial is part of Insect Glaive's identity is for that same reason. No other weapon goes aerial like Insect Glaive does. That being the more unique thing about Insect Glaive is why we call it its identity. So that's the thing we latch onto when you say Insect Glaive. In fact, when I first played Monster Hunter, like my actual first game in Rise, my first weapon choice was Insect Glaive. Why? Because my friend introduced Insect Glaive to me. For context, they don't play Insect Glaive, so they don't actually know in detail. They told me it was the aerial melee weapon. And that's what made me want to choose Insect Glaive for the first time. So to me, that is the identity. I don't care what the first Insect Glaive was. Aerial Insect Glaive is, in my opinion, the core identity of Insect Glaive. And the developers should really, I would, at least, I want them to lean more into that. Instead, in Wilds, they leaned away. They should not be afraid of going more aerial. Because I sincerely don't see a lot of good reason to do so. And that's just very disappointing. For me, going from World or Rise into Wilds, I really I originally thought that they would further lean into aerial because, in my opinion, that's the identity. And seeing them just basically go 180 back into another direction just makes me very sad. And like on top of all that, the RSS definitely did make me enjoy Insect Glaive for a while, but if the direction they want for Insect Glaive I don't agree with more charge attacks, more commitment, and RSS spamming, because if anything, what the changes they added in Wilds makes it even more similar to other weapons, as other spam weapons, or like ZSD spam, 4 release spam, Spirit Helmbreakers, Spirit release spam. The changes they've done to Wilds Insect Glaive makes it even more similar to the rest of the weapons, making it less unique. And I guess the biggest reason I do kind of dislike Insect Glaive is for that reason. I'm just disappointed. Another fun story I could share is that when I first played GU Generations Ultimate on the Switch, I tried a lot of weapons, and this was like after I played Wild, so I kind of forgot Insect Glaive was an option. But when I finally did try play Striker Insect Glaive, I really enjoyed it. You know why? Because it's like World Insect Glaive, where you're fast, you're mobile, you can hit a couple times real quickly and leave, and that was really fun. Like, Insect Glaive is probably one of my main weapons in GU whenever I go back to it. And it's just seeing that further in my mind solidifies the fact that what the direction of making more charge attacks for Insect Glaive, making a more high commitment, weird weapon that has even less of an identity, that's the wrong direction. And I hope they do go back to aerial. And don't fear aerial, because it's no different than having perfect dodges or blocking. For this last section, I'll be going over my ideas on improving the Wild Insect Glaive. First things first, get some more descriptions for the fucking Insects, please. Because I really need to know what they actually do to make a good choice. On top of that, add back the old gen way of nurturing Insects, because that was so much better. Or at the very least, even if you ignore all that, add a proper weapon tree for the Insects so I know where and what I'm missing, what Insects I'm missing. That's more of a UI thing, but my god, please, I don't understand why they haven't done that. The next big thing is buff the original ground combo and nerf the strong descending slash, the offset attack. Because I feel like the offset attack could mean, honestly, you can keep the offset effect, but generally I feel like that attack should be more on par to something like Spirit Thrust on Longsword, where it's a weak attack that allows you to go into a very strong high commitment attack instead of completely overthrowing the ground combo. The second main thing I would love to add is actually make aerial good. Like the previous section, I don't understand why the developers are that afraid of making aerial good, and they're going out of their way on making aerial bad, and it's just unnecessary. One niche thing that I would like as well is, on top of making the diving wyvern attack stronger damage-wise, I would love for that to just have a bit of hyper armor, just to make that attack be more easily used. That might be a little strong. This is me just being greedy, I guess, with my hopes. Third thing I would absolutely love is for the pole vault to have iframes in all directions. Because if you didn't know, that the pole vault, the That's the dodge that allows you to go from ground to air, but it only has iframes if you dodge backwards, which is frankly ridiculous. Honestly, it's so unnecessary. I don't know, man. It's just that change is weird. The last idea I have for improving Insect Glaive is by giving it a perfect dodge, because that honestly fits it fits its identity of being a faster weapon better, in my opinion. Now, this perfect dodge would be more similar to the dual blades, where it gives you a buff. Now, to trigger this perfect dodge, you would first have to gather all your extracts, then you will have to iframe an attack using the pole vault, because that's like the unique dodge that Insect Glaive has. Now, the effects of the perfect dodge is, firstly, it will make all the assist Kinsect attacks, so whenever folk follows you during focus mode, all the attacks that the Kinsect lands will automatically generate powders. This should make powders more relevant, and it'll make it much easier to build towards, because right now, if you're trying to intentionally make powders, it's honestly a struggle or pointless compared to the assist Kinsect. So yeah, first effect of the perfect dodge is it makes your Kinsect assist attacks create powders. Now the second buff I would add is for the helicopter attack, or normally it triggers the vaulting dance on the last hit. Now my suggestion is, when this perfect dodge effect is active, make the first hit of the helicopter trigger the vaulting dance, meaning it would allow you to stack the aerial damage bonus much more quickly, and basically should make aerial stronger generally. The only other idea I have, which might be a little strong, which when this effect is active, you have faster attacks. Basically, your combos animations are quicker, so overall you do more damage, and it would make the weapon feel better. And that is all I have for Insect Glaive. I'm curious on the direction that developers go with in the expansion. That is probably one of the things I would focus more on, but it's a very big coin toss, because if they further build into RSS and charge high commitment to random crap, I would probably just be even more disappointed and hate the weapon even more. But generally there is still a little hope that I have that I will enjoy Insect Glaive in Wilds once again, because I don't hate any of these weapons. It's more appropriate for me to say Insect Glaive is the only weapon in the game right now that I would say I actively dislike. Every other weapon, despite some bad things I might not enjoy about them, I would still pick them up. I don't mind them, except for Insect Glaive, which just doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good to dislike something. Finally, I should mention that Insect Glaive is the only weapon I rank in D. And that is all from me for today. I'll catch you guys in the next video, which will be about bow.